She changed her life after 30. And so can you. Have you ever looked in the mirror at 30, or maybe 35, and thought, is this it? Not in a sad way necessarily, but in that quiet, honest moment where you wonder if the life you've built so far is really the one you want to keep living. Maybe you've got a decent job, a home, a routine, but something still feels like it's missing. Or maybe you feel like you haven't even gotten started yet, like you're way behind everyone else. If you've ever had those thoughts, you're definitely not alone. And the good news? You're not stuck. You're not late. You're just in the middle of a chapter, and it's one you can rewrite. This is a story about change, about how one woman, like many of us, found herself at a crossroads in her 30s and decided to take a different road. And while her story is just one among many, it's proof that transformation doesn't belong to the young. It belongs to the willing. Let's call her Ava. Ava was 32, working in an office she didn't hate, but definitely didn't love. Her days blended together: wake up, commute, emails, meetings, late night scrolling, sleep, repeat. Sound familiar? On the outside, things seemed fine. On the inside, she felt numb. Like life was happening around her, not with her. One evening, after a long day and another dinner eaten standing up in her kitchen, she asked herself a simple but powerful question. What would it feel like to be excited again? That question didn't lead to a life-changing moment overnight. It didn't spark some dramatic movie scene where she quits her job and moves to Bali. But it did spark something. A quiet curiosity. That's the thing. We're taught to believe that change is big and loud, but more often, it starts as a whisper. And Ava started listening. She didn't start with grand gestures. She started with 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes of silence in the morning before checking her phone. 10 minutes of journaling after work. 10 minutes of trying something new. An online course, a podcast, even just walking a different route home. What she discovered wasn't just new information, but a new voice inside her, one she hadn't heard in a long time. One that said, you're allowed to want more. And here's the first lesson that came out of that. Change doesn't demand a full restart. It asks for your attention. It asks that you stop numbing, even just for a moment, and start noticing what stirs you, what makes you curious, what makes you feel alive. Ava's second big realization came a few months later. She was scrolling social media, like we all do, and instead of feeling inspired, she felt completely drained. Every scroll seemed to whisper, you're behind. You're not doing enough. Look how perfect everyone else is. But something shifted in her. She paused, took a breath, and decided to unfollow every account that made her feel less than. Every single one. She replaced them with accounts that made her laugh, made her learn, or made her feel seen. That might sound small, but it was powerful, because it reminded her of something crucial. You can't grow in an environment that constantly makes you feel inadequate. The people, the content, the voices you allow into your life, those shape the way you see yourself. And if you're trying to change, you need voices that water your soul, not ones that drain it. So Ava began to build her own little garden. She sought out friends who were also exploring new things. She joined a book club, even though she was nervous. She started sharing more honestly with the people close to her, even when it felt awkward. And little by little, the garden grew. So did her confidence. Here's the thing we don't hear enough. You don't need to know exactly where you're going to start moving. The road becomes clearer when you begin to walk it. Ava didn't wake up one day with a 5-year plan. She just began taking steps toward what felt more true. And that's where I want to pause and talk to you directly. If you're watching this, there's a part of you that's ready. Not for some magical fix, not for a perfect plan, but for something real. And I want you to know, whatever you're carrying, whatever doubts you've picked up along the way, whatever mistakes or missed chances you think are holding you back, they don't define what comes next. You do. We're often told that 30 is the point where we should have it all figured out. But no one tells you that figuring it out is a lifelong process. That it's okay to start again. That you can change careers, change relationships, change yourself, not because you were doing it wrong, but because you're finally doing it with your eyes open. Now let's keep walking through Ava's story and what it might unlock for you too. Ava was starting to feel different. Not because everything around her had changed. Her job was still the same. Her apartment looked the same. Even her daily routine wasn't radically different. But she was changing. Slowly. Quietly. Deeply. One of the biggest shifts happened when she stopped asking, "What am I supposed to be doing?" and started asking, "What actually feels right for me right now?" That question alone can unlock doors you didn't even know were there. For Ava, it led to an unexpected answer: creativity. Something she hadn't touched since college. She remembered how much she used to love writing short stories, how she'd stay up late scribbling ideas in old notebooks that were now tucked in a dusty box somewhere under her bed. So one night, she took a deep breath, opened a blank Google Doc, and just started typing. No expectations, no pressure, just a quiet promise to herself: let's try. And something beautiful happened. Not in the sense that the writing was amazing, not at first, but in the way it made her feel. Alive, connected, curious. That 1 hour of writing gave her more energy than her entire workday. So she did it again, and again, until she started looking forward to it more than her Netflix binges or late-night scrolling. Here's the thing: you don't need to be great at something to let it light you up. You don't need to monetize it, prove it to anyone, or turn it into some polished project. You just need to give yourself permission to do what brings you joy, even if no one else ever sees it. That's the third lesson. Joy is a valid direction. If something feels good and true, that's a sign, not a distraction. It's not selfish, it's sacred. And especially after 30, when so much of our time is pulled toward responsibilities, routines, and expectations, it matters deeply to carve out space for joy. Ava also began to rethink the way she defined success. Before, it was all about climbing some invisible ladder, promotions, titles, salary benchmarks. But the higher she climbed, the less it felt like her. She realized she built a version of success that was never actually hers to begin with. It was borrowed. From parents, from teachers, from movies, from social pressure. And she started to let it go. Instead, she asked herself, what would success look like if no one else had an opinion about it? That question was uncomfortable, but it was also freeing. It gave her the space to imagine a life that felt spacious, not suffocating. A life where fulfillment wasn't measured by productivity, but by peace. That led to another small, brave step. She booked a weekend retreat for herself. No one else, just her, a cabin by the woods, and her journal. It was terrifying at first. We're so used to being surrounded by noise, TV, texts, people. That silence can feel like a stranger. But in that silence, Ava heard herself more clearly than she had in years. She wrote down every version of herself she had tried to be. The achiever, the people pleaser, the fixer, the good daughter, the dependable employee. And then she wrote down who she wanted to be now. Not in some fantasy future, but starting today. It was the first time she realized she had permission to evolve. That being 30 or 35 or 40 wasn't too late. It was right on time. This brings us to a crucial point. Your life doesn't need to make sense to anyone but you. We spend so much energy explaining, justifying, apologizing. But you don't need to defend your choices if they come from a place of self-awareness and love. You can walk away from things that no longer serve you, even if they once did. You can change your mind. You can change your story. And Ava's story, it kept unfolding in quiet, powerful ways. She didn't become a best-selling author overnight. She didn't have a viral moment, but she did start waking up with a different kind of energy. She began seeking out new opportunities that aligned with her values. She applied to jobs that matched her creative spark, and eventually found one at a small company where her ideas were actually heard. But the job wasn't the point. The point was this: she became the kind of person who backed herself, who listened to her own voice more than the voices of doubt, who believed that being 30-something was not a deadline but a doorway. And maybe that's what you need to hear right now too. That whatever voice in your head says, it's too late, or you should have figured it out by now, that voice isn't truth. It's fear dressed up like logic. It wants you to stay the same, because change feels risky. But staying stuck, that's the bigger risk. That's the quiet regret that creeps in when you ignore the life that's calling you. You don't have to burn everything down to start again. You just need to be honest with yourself about what you want, really want, and be brave enough to take one step toward it. That's it, just one. So if you've been feeling like something inside you is shifting, pay attention to that. If you've been wondering whether it's okay to dream bigger or dream differently, the answer is yes. You are not too old. You are not too late. You are right on time. Let's keep walking this path, one step at a time.